It's my pleasure today to be talking to Erik Weir, Principal and Managing Member of WCM Global Wealth, a diversified asset management firm. Erik graduated from Georgia State University with a degree in finance. He's currently pursuing an executive MBA from Harvard Extension School. Prior to starting Weir Capital Management in 2011, he previously worked at both Merrill Lynch as an assistant vice president and at DLJ as a senior vice president. Erik, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
It's my pleasure, Jonas.
So starting off here, can you kind of tell me a little bit about your company and your role within the company?
Yeah, so as a founding member or principal, it basically means I'm the person who started the firm. So when I left Johnson Lufkin and Jenrette, it was in San Francisco, and resigned and basically walked across the street, leased office space, and went from a large business to no business at all, and then started over in 1999.
So today, how big is WCM? How many people do you have?
We have about 19 employees. We manage real estate, marketable securities, and develop real estate around the country. We're doing some in the Eastern Seaboard and the West Coast, and we're beginning operations in Germany.
Great, that's really fantastic. Can you kind of walk me through each of your lines of business and kind of what they do, kind of from that 10,000-foot view?
Sure. So we typically view ourselves as people who raise and deploy capital. So we have a skill set of beginning to maybe develop a structure to put deals together, find investors who are looking to have return on their capital, and then there are the people who look to use capital and give you back, hopefully your capital back and a return. So some of our partners include we've done everything from movies. We've financed more than a dozen movies that have been released nationwide and internationally. We've also financed projects and owned diversified real estate, things like office buildings, self-storage facilities. You may have heard of Topgolf, depending on where in the country. We have 5 Topgolfs in the U.S., and we're beginning to expand into Europe, and we're planning to do 25 locations in Europe over the next 6 or 7 years. And we also have hedge funds, and the hedge funds are things that try to profit from either a stock going up or a security or the converse of that as well. We at WCM have clients that typically have pretty complicated financial lives. Sometimes they own large businesses. 2 of our clients, one owns one of the largest private retailers in the world. One owns the largest private restaurateur in the world. And then we have people who sold technology companies who are clients, and then you have some who have maybe owned diversified businesses. So we have a small market where we have maybe a total of 70 clients, and they're throughout the U.S. And our concentrations are in the West Coast and the East Coast.
Cool. So it sounds like you guys have almost a nationwide reach at this point.
Yes.
So I've obviously been interning with your company for 2 years. Something I know you've talked a lot about is mission and vision. Can you kind of explain what that means for WCM and how you see that as the principal?
Yeah. So when I started the business 20 years ago, people were just beginning to talk about mission and vision. Mission is kind of the steps you want to take day to day, your mission, and your vision are kind of the things you want to do more long term. So you have to have a long term view in order to have a missional view, which is more short term. We've kind of taken it a step further. We look at mission, vision, and then your legacy, and then your impact. So oftentimes when you're younger, you just think about mission, vision. Where do I want to go? I want my job. I need to make this much income to have an apartment. I want my first car. I need to pay off student loans. Those are some nice goals. And then you begin to put steps in place. As you begin to think more about things, you realize that life is short. You start to think about the legacy you want to leave behind and the impact you want to make while you're alive. And hopefully you've touched lives in such a way that people are continuing to be impacted well beyond your lifespan. So we help our clients think about things like that. And when you have those are conversations they usually don't have with other advisors.
So would you kind of say that's the WCM difference, what sets you apart?
It's one of the differences. Another thing that is a difference is we've removed a lot of layers of expenses and a lot of layers of structure that you may have between a typical investor and a real estate or a film project. So that's unique. And with our portfolio managers, if someone we manage money for them, they can talk to the portfolio manager themselves that day, have a meeting with them. They're with a large investment house. Usually they have contracts with other money managers in other states who have other contracts with many other people in mutual funds, and the levels of separation are significant.
So it's that higher level of customer service that you can offer to your clients.
Correct.
Great. So I think that something that's probably very much in everyone's mind who's watching this is kind of how you got to where you are today. Can you kind of talk about your career track and some of the lessons you learned, basically, I guess, from starting college to where you are now, owning your own company with this massive reach?
Yeah, so you may hear I stutter sometimes, so that was probably an advantage I had. And you think about how's that an advantage? It was terrible for being picked on as a kid. It was terrible when I started at Merrill Lynch, because when I started, you grew your business by what they would call cold calling. This is like almost, I think it's illegal anymore, but you would call people on the phone and you would try to reach them and connect them and try to earn their investment business with someone you just have never met. You're calling, so it's very challenging. And when you stutter, it's even more challenging because people either think you're kidding because who's served a stuttering stockbroker, or they hang up on you, things of that nature. So I ended up going door to door and having to meet people. So the way it was good for me is I had to work harder than other people, but then you end up getting some momentum. And when you stutter and you meet somebody face to face, they tend to pay attention because they're trying to, what is this person trying to say to me? I feel like they're trying to say something. So that was something that ended up, being a difficulty, but also was something that ultimately helped me.
So you've obviously been able to really move past. I think that's been a very defining factor of your career.
Oh yeah, it's something it's been. It's been a blessing, and it's been something that I've embraced, and it's just part of who I am. And as you go forward and you begin to, like your earlier question was, how'd you grow the larger business? And I didn't necessarily set out to have a business the size that it is, but you continue to adjust, continue to educate yourself, continue to surround yourself with smart people, and continue to respond to changes. And changes always create opportunity. Many people are afraid of change and like the status quo, but there's always more wealth created around a change or an adversity typically than other times.
So we're in the middle, obviously, of either a recession or market correction, depending on how you look at it. Have you seen a situation like this before in your career?
Every crisis, everything is always a bit different. And I think what's interesting about human behavior is everyone thinks this is the one that takes us out. So in 1999, the technology bubble happened, and people thought the world was coming to an end. 2001. Airplanes flew into the World Trade Center. People thought they'd never fly airplanes again. They would never, travel again. We're going to have a different way of living. 2008-9 was an economic crisis where the U.S. is going to go under. We have a fiat currency. What's going to happen? And then here we are again. 2000. Between 2020, 2019, 2021. The debt, all those different issues. And people were concerned about the stock market ever coming back, or people ever going outside or mingling or doing things again. And to me, it's observing behavior and seeing now that the indices, I was talking in March doing call-ins with our clients and saying, I think, the markets will recover. And the typical recovery is 50%, pretty quickly. No one thought that would happen. And now we're in some cases up on the year over where we started the year, so well beyond any expectations. So this has been a very interesting time for sure.
So you said something really interesting there, that you guys are actually up for the year in certain areas. Would you, as a general rule, look at crises like we're going through now or have in the past as really market opportunities, whether it's in capital markets or personally to kind of grow and shift your direction?
Absolutely. Every time there's adversity, there's always an opportunity. And what you'll find is that people love to pay full price. They love a rosy forecast, and they love fantastic news. And they're willing to pay a premium for that. So if you think of, this is the only industry I'm aware of where if you want to buy an automobile or a suit or something, you may say, well, there's a sale, it's 30% off. Maybe now's a good time to buy a suit. Or there's no interest for a year on a car. Maybe you should buy a car or something like that. Stock market is interesting. In real estate, if prices fall, people run. They sell. They want out because it's scary to them, and they don't want in. So you almost having a view that's opposite of mainstream is something that can be very beneficial. So when people are very optimistic, it's time to be cautious. I'm not saying pessimistic, but it's time to be cautious. And when people are very pessimistic and scared, it's almost always time to be optimistic.
Great. So how would you leverage the current situation if you're, say, someone who's looking at graduating in the spring of 2021, or maybe you just graduated? How do you take the current environment and leverage that to the best effect in your own career?
First thing I would remind myself of is that all the things that are facing us are external. The things that slow you down are internal. So the external things are, while GDP was down 32.5% today, unemployment's large, my internship got canceled, or these are things, and you can easily allow yourself to become a victim of your circumstance. And I think that is something that's easy to fall into. It's almost celebrated, oh, I need help, or this is bad, or where's my next government check coming from? I need somebody to bail me out. But if you look at opportunity and you think of what's different and what's not different, and human behavior is manic, highs and lows, but it's pretty predictable over the long haul. And if you can take a long haul view, I think they're great opportunities. So if I'm looking for a job or I'm coming out of college, I'm going to be assertive. I'm going to research the employer. I'm going to write a very clear and concise resume, and I'm going to be persistent and pursue them to make sure that I stand out above my peers who are also applying for a similar job.
You mentioned standing out from your peers. You're obviously in a position where you've had to hire a lot of people over the years. What kind of either character traits or just general factors set some candidates far above others? And what helps you stand out in that process?
I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've gotten maybe 6 thank you notes after the interview, handwritten thank you notes. And everyone will send a text or an email, and those are fine. Sending a handwritten thank you note means a lot. Remembering people's names, doing research before you get there, knowing the company's products, services, profit margins, where they're headquartered. People just going the extra mile. And it's kind of like I tell people all the time, if you have a race, you've heard of horse racing, and there are X number of horses in there. And the purse, the prize, they call it a purse, but the prize that the horse in the first place wins is multiples of what the horse in fourth place wins. And it's not that horse is multiples faster. It's the small differences that make the big difference.
So it's really just kind of, I guess, to summarize, building that personal connection and showing that you actually care. Is that correct characterization? That's
a good way to look at it, and then also let them know that you care about your individual appearance, you care about your education. You're a lifetime learner. You've studied them. You're looking for opportunity. You're looking for additional work when you're done. You want to be the first one there. You want to be respectful of their culture and of other people. And I think just and at the same time you want to be a team player. So I think if you do those sort of things, you'll be noticed.
So on the inverse of that, what are the major red flags if you're interviewing someone? What definitely just makes you pick your head up and say, hey, this person's not going to work out?
So usually during an interview, the people will say things or do things, or not really convinced who they really want the job that much, or they know the job, or they just want a job. Those are things that would be a turn off to me. I want somebody who's hungry for this particular position.
So given the fact that we're obviously in a situation where it's hard to find jobs, what if you are in a position where you need to get a job because you have to put food on the table and you have to pay rent? How do you approach it from that situation? If maybe this isn't your dream job, maybe this is just something for now. How do you set yourself apart in that situation?
Well, I think you're transparent, and I would say it's your priority. So if it's something that your dream job may be, be in the movie business, or maybe something else, but that's just not happening right now, then maybe you're dreaming of eating. or doing other things, so it becomes the dream job for today. And most entry level jobs, people are not expecting you to make a lifetime commitment, but to be committed while you're there. And I think if you are competent to do the job and can communicate clearly that you're excited about the position and that you can do the job well, I think you'll separate yourself from the majority of the competition.
So transparency and honesty.
Yes.
Great. So looking back at your own career, what have been some of the high points and low points, and what have you learned from those situations?
Well, high points were we ended up negotiating the Topgolf deal. That was a high point for us. Low point was when I left Merrill Lynch and realized I signed a non-compete clause. And I'm like, I'm starting over. This is bad. And so, I mean, that was a low point. But it's but again, there came opportunity, because when you're starting over and you realize, hey, I thought I had this to rely upon, and then you don't, you're making a decision. I mean, you need to move ahead, and it's nice. I talk to people. There's optimism, which are people who think they can do it. There's pessimists, or people who don't think they can do it, and there's get it done, people who just do it. And I think I try to be more of the latter.
And how do you do that?
Just I keep goals, daily, weekly, monthly, annual, multi-annual goals, and they can change. Sometimes you're on target, sometimes you're behind target, sometimes you thought something you liked and decided maybe you don't. So most people don't set goals for fear of having to change them or not reaching them. But if you set goals and you set objectives, it's a way to have clarity, and really clarity of purpose and clarity of what you're trying to accomplish is critical in success. If you go back to academics, if you're thinking you're in college and you have an exam in 2 days, or you have an exam in 8 hours, your ability to focus with an exam in 8 hours, if you don't know the material, is exceptional. Your ability to focus with 2 weeks before the exam may not be impressive. So if you can borrow a little bit of the focus and a little bit of the direction from the anxiety, and trying to create anxiety, but try to train yourself to stay on top of things and to be alert, be looking for opportunity, and stay on target. And what I tell people is, we have things that are urgent, we have things that are important, and we have things that are nice to do, and we have things that maybe we would like to do, but they're not important. Try to do the things that are both urgent and important first, not the other things. And sometimes it's easy to get distracted and not work on things that are urgent or important. Hopefully you have urgent and important are there, but maybe they're important but not urgent. And if you can get to more things that are important but not urgent, then you can remain focused on your objectives and move ahead.
Cool. Well, Erik, thank you so much for taking the time out of your obviously busy day to talk to us today. I know I appreciate it. I hope everyone who's watching this also appreciates it.
It's my pleasure, Jonas.